Streaming 24/7.
24/7.
Bold Moves Radio.
Bold Moves Radio.
Afrika nakupenda sana. Oh, Afrika nakupenda sana.
Africa nakupenda sana. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that when you hear that sound, it is that time of the week where we are at the African Experience with me, Dr. NGWENYA, who tonight I'm broadcasting live from Uganda. That is the Pearl of Africa. Ooh, we are so excited, tonight because we have a very remarkable, guest, and we're looking forward to hearing everything and anything about him. Maybe just as a reminder, you remember that, this show is about celebrating Africans. It's about celebrating Africa. It's about, celebrating, heritage and really showcasing what Africans can actually do out there. I'm not alone as usual. I have my co-host, AVENTINA MABUNDA. She will come in and she will also greet you. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned and let me introduce you to our guest for tonight. I have, Dr. Mao Amis. Say hello to our listeners.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here. It's a pleasure talking to you, Flami, as always.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have no idea. This is the man of many talents, and I'm looking forward to hearing anything and everything about what he has to do. He's very adventurous. He's a global citizen, and I don't want to spoil it because, he's here to speak for himself. Dr. Mao, in a nutshell, who is Mao, Amis, in a nutshell?
Good question. Yes, like you said, my name is Mao Amis. I'm a Ugandan by heritage, and but I've lived in South Africa for the last almost 20 years in January, and I can say that I essentially started my career as a biologist in South Africa. So South Africa has done so much for me. So if you ask me who I am, I would just say I'm a true African child who has been on a journey across the continent.
Absolutely. And I know for sure because, I'm very good. I can actually say I'm a professional stalker because I do stalk people. So the people that I invite to the show, I really stalk and I follow their journey. And I can attest that you are a global citizen and you travel across Africa. But we're going to hear a little bit about that a little bit more. Mao, does it have a meaning?
Very good question. In my culture, not really, but not in every single African culture. And, it's the first time I've been asked this question, but my name Mao is actually derived from Mao Zedong, the Chinese Mao Zedong. It's a long story, but in essence, it's a nickname that stuck. But having said that, many African countries, including here in Uganda, and apparently in Southern Africa, I think among the Sutu, Mao has a meaning. I think is it the Sutu that means Mao means your mother, So even though my name in my own culture doesn't really have a name per se, in African culture, I was very impressed to find out later that actually it has some meaning.
Hey, wow, very interesting. Okay, so let's go back, to your background. You said you studied biology and things like that. Take us a little bit through that because I assume that because of the things that you studied, it actually landed you with the things that we are doing currently. So you studied biology or something? Just take us a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe let me just take to the very very origin. So like I said, I'm originally from Uganda, and that's where I did my high school, and then I did my undergraduate in Kenya, where I trained as a teacher. Actually, believe me or not.
Oh.
And and both my parents, my late dad and my father, were teachers, and growing up, no one wanted to be a teacher, and but I found myself, studying education, and even though I did education science, which was biology and chemistry, I was absolutely adamant that I was not going to be a teacher. But when I think that later I became a professor, it's like, you can run, but you can't run far away,
Yeah.
So, so I did education science in
Mhm.
Kenya, actually, where I studied biology and chemistry. Like I've said, I never taught. And then right after my undergraduate, I always wanted to be a scientist. And I remember very
Mm.
well my professor telling me at university that, Mao, if you wanted to be a scientist and not a
Mhm.
teacher, you have to do a project that would create a pathway for you to do a master's degree, you know. And so I did plant physiology as a minor project, as a bridging course to be able to allow
Mhm.
me to do a master's degree. And so that's
I
how I
see.
ended up doing a master's degree in Cape Town.
Okay. Wow, that is very interesting. I think we have something in common there. I'm a teacher by profession. I always tell people that I came
Why
into
am I
the
not
agri
surprised?
space, you're not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I always say I'm a teacher by profession, and I always say I came into the agricultural sector through the back door because every
Mm.
time when people think of agriculture, they think of farming. And I'm saying no, through the teaching, education and other pathway, here am I'm doing something in the sector. And I can see that you also did that, and then you studied further, and then you also continue to to do your PhD.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but for us growing in abject poverty, I grew in a household where there was no running water, there was no electricity. But from a very young age, it was instilled in us that, education is your only ticket out of poverty.
Mm,
So my career was always about how do I advance myself to the next level, because I knew if, let's say, I ended up with my first degree, I was just going to come back to my village like everyone else, and I wouldn't amount to much. And so when I did my
mm,
undergraduate degree, the aim was what next? That's why I was very clear. I
mm,
didn't want
mm,
to be a teacher. I didn't need to do a postgraduate
mm,
degree and so on. And thankfully for mentors at universities, like professors say, like, yes, it's actually absolutely possible for you to do that. And so when I finished my undergraduate degree, I knew very well that I wanted to do a postgraduate degree. And just because I thought that having a master's degree would put me in a better position from a job perspective and things like that.
mm.
And thankfully, the opportunity came once I completed my undergraduate degree and got a scholarship to go to South Africa. And that's where I've been
Okay.
the last 20 years. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Mm,
Thank you so much.
mm.
Let me welcome, we have, listeners who are joining, through Facebook and other media. I would like to acknowledge, Nyiko Patsin Maluleke. Thank you so much. And he's making a comment. Luckily, I also know him. He's a teacher by profession, and he's saying
Right.
most successful academics were teachers, before. Absolutely. And Mr. Patson Maluleke, he's also a farmer, and I'm sure there is a lot that we'll be learning, from this conversation. Okay, then fast forward, you do your PhD, you study, and you are the co-founder of a company called the African Center for Green Economy. That is a mouthful. The African Center for Green Economy. Firstly, before you tell me a little bit more about that company, I want to know what actually inspired you to actually establish that company in the first place.
So good question. Look, we set up the African Center for Green Economy. It's actually a non-profit think tank. We think of ourselves as that, but obviously with a model of management consulting. And you rightfully say, Hlami, that it's quite a mouthful. And we were very deliberate when we set up the company way back in 2012. But we wanted something that can be as big and as bold as the vision that we had for our organization. And so but the primary motivation was that we really were at a point where we said, we come from Africa. We understand the challenges that our continent faces. Like I said earlier on, we understand the challenges that our communities face. So we needed to create a platform that would enable young people and young leaders on the continent to be at the forefront of driving the change. Because we were of the opinion that, after studying all the way up to a PhD level, why should I go and sit somewhere in some corner office as second fiddle to someone when we know what the challenges of Africa are and how we could be able to step boldly into this space. So for me, that was really the key reason why we set up the center. But actually, the setting up of the center happened by pure coincidence. Myself and my co-founder, Dr. Sepo Hachigonta, we were on the same scholarship at UCT. We found ourselves in China or at a student conference, and we didn't know each other. And it was like the Americans brought us together, who gave us the scholars. And it's like, we should be looking out for each other, because that's how we could collaborate, we could make a difference in our community's life. And that's essentially how we made a conscious decision at that time that we were going to set up this center called the African Center for Green Economy.
Okay, so could you perhaps say that your upbringing, because you said, growing up, in poverty and all that, could you say that your upbringing, having mentors that opened the doors for you, also inspired you to do the same for others?
Very, very good question. When I'm oftentimes asked about the question of mentors, I think mentors are very, very important. But I think that I'm more of a person who operates in my head. Obviously, I can't say that I've been assisted all throughout my journey. Like I can point out, specific incidences or specific personalities in my career who have, ushered me in the right direction. But I can't consciously say that, these are the people who have mentored me. But I absolutely believe that mentorship is very important. And we, as people who are out there, we have a duty to ensure that we pass the baton on. And especially for a place like South Africa, where, there's not going to be anybody who looks like you in this kind of spaces that we operate in. So I have, given scholarships to people who have just approached me randomly. I have graduated masters, PhD students, people who don't know me, but they just approach me out of nowhere, because I think we owe it to our communities to bring everyone along.
Wow, that paying it forward, concept. Let me acknowledge, I see there is a Dr. Mikateko Mabunda. Thank you so much for joining. We know that you are really, really, really one of our number one, fans, and you always join the show. So Dr. Mikateko Mabunda is saying, a platform for young people, and she's actually clapping hands for that. And she's also quoting you when you're saying looking out for each other, a concept, for Africa. I think, that is really, really, really interesting. Okay, I will be taking a short commercial break. When we come back, I would like us to go straight for you to tell us a bit more about the company. Now we know the name of the company, we know what inspired it, but we also want to know what it is all about. Let's take a commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere, because we are here talking to a very inspiring, person, Dr. Mau Amis. Don't go away. We'll be back shortly.
Are you ready for the ultimate dietary powerhouse? Look no further than Masana Dietitian's Nutro Boost. Our scientifically formulated low GI food is designed to give you the boost you need to fuel your body and reach your health goals. With Nutro Boost, you have the flexibility to enjoy it as a high fiber cereal or a satisfying shake. Simply mix it with water and indulge in the mouth-watering flavors that we have to offer. But that's not all. NutriBoost is packed with essential nutrients that are beneficial for your overall well-being. Enriched with 20 immune-boosting vitamins and minerals, it's a convenient and effective way to support your immune system. And here's the best part. NutriBoost is gluten-free, egg-free, and high in omega-3, making it suitable for those with dietary restrictions or allergies. Need an energy boost? NutriBoost has you covered. It's high in energy and protein, providing you with the fuel you need to power through your day. Whether it's a busy morning or an intense workout session, say goodbye to midday slumps and hello to sustained energy with Nutro Boost. Try it today and experience the difference. For orders or to become a distributor, contact us on the following details.
Wow, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. This is the African Experience. You are with me, Dr. NGWENYA. Tonight, we really have a giant, and I do agree with Dr. Mikateko Mabunda where she say, we owe it to our communities to take them along. I'm enjoying listening to this great giant. Stay tuned because we haven't really started, to even scratch the surface of what, the giant that we have today can actually share. We are talking to Dr. Mao Amis. He's a global citizen. He's actually the founder and the CEO of the African Center for Green Economy. He's originally from Uganda. He has been in South Africa for over 20 years. There is more that we need, to talk about. Dr. Mao, welcome back. I have some questions that I see online, but I will take them shortly. But I want you to tell us a little bit more about what your company is all about.
Thank you, Flami. So the center, when you say company, I kind of cringe a bit because we're actually a non-profit organization.
Okay.
And our aim as a non-profit organization is to push forward the agenda of transitioning Africa into a much more greener and inclusive economy, and recognizing that Africa is face significant challenges around climate change, and the fact that the weather is changing is going to obviously impact our communities and so on. So we completely believe that if we're going to transform Africa, the opportunity is now to go on a sustainable pathway, because we think that we can be able to unlock the challenges around poverty and so on. But how do we do that? We do that through a couple of ways. Like typical institution that we are, we drive thought leadership and research as our primary undertaking. And there, because we believe that evidence-based decision making is important. That's where the science comes in. Like, we want to push our societies into this better world, but we need to do that being informed by science and by the evidence that informs decision making. Ideally, policy making has to be evidence-based. So
emotions don't have a role. Emotions, making decisions based on emotions don't have a role there.
Absolutely. I think that it's important to put the science up front, and we follow all decisions along, and so for me, that is the kind of thing that I think is very important, because if we understand the science, we can be able to inform policy in a much more level-headed manner. And so and that's what most think tanks do. But I always see ourselves not only just as a think tank, we refer to ourselves as a think-do tank, So
okay.
So we don't just research, because your typical think tank will, undertake empirical research, develop policy briefs, and hope that information gets taken up. But we even go further. We experiment, and our experimentation takes various formats. It's primarily through market-based mechanisms, where we say, for example, either we design our own projects, our own products, or we work directly with entrepreneurs. Because I believe that, Africa has for generations become to be viewed as a continent of handouts, that we are so desperate for handouts from elsewhere, yet all the ingenuity exists on the continent, all the innovations exist in the continent. What do we need to do to take those innovations to the next level? And so for us, we're very adamant about working with young people to advance their thought leadership, to advance their ideas, and hopefully they can be able to set up businesses, companies, and initiatives of the future. And our work encompasses almost about what I call the nexus: water, energy, food security nexus. And so for each of those things, we do different type of activation of programs.
Okay, I will come back because I have a specific question. Because, like I say, that I stalk you and I know that you have a lot of innovations. So I'll come back to that. I have a question here from one of the listeners. Nyiko Manuleke is asking, most organizations in the green economy industry usually face challenges when it comes to accessing funding. How does your guest deal with this challenge in order to support their work? How do you, because you said you are a not-for-profit organization, and I know that you have been existing for over 10 years plus. How do you do it? How do you sustain your funding, and how do you access the funding?
So, I mean, I think what differentiates us from your typical NGO is that we're primarily a knowledge-driven institution. So we undertake research. So we do a couple of things. We design our own projects and go out to funders. Like at the moment, we're funded by the Canadian government in a project in South Africa and in Uganda. So we do that. From a sustainability perspective, we design our own internal projects and go out to funders. We also do competitive bidding for projects, and other actors within the space also approach us to do research work for them. So in many respects, we're like your typical consulting firm, but as a non-profit organization. And that obviously, so that's the differentiator between your typical NGO and an organization like ours.
Wow, that is very, very interesting. I think this is an innovation on its own. The model that we are using is an innovation. So you do consulting, but you don't make profit. So you get the resources in order to fund the activities that your company is doing. Wow, that is very, very exciting and interesting.
So for example, now, I mean, a classic example that we raise funding from elsewhere, and we're running, for example, what I call a green innovation hub, where we are supporting 15 entrepreneurs from 5 Southern African countries on a 9-month program that they don't have to pay for it. We provide them with mentorship, with advice, with connection to investors, and so on. So that's the kind of thing where we raise funding elsewhere, and we use that to design kind of impact-driven type of initiatives that we would like to implement.
Okay, and talking about that, what is your coverage? So your company is based in South Africa, in Cape Town, right? Your headquarters.
Yeah.
But what is your coverage? Where you said
we see ourselves as the name suggests, an Africa-wide institution. But we have undertaken projects essentially across the globe. But we've worked in West Africa, in Liberia, in Gabon, in East Africa quite a lot, and obviously Southern Africa. So we see ourselves as, in your typical classification, as a regional or an Africa institution. But primarily we are headquartered in South Africa.
Okay, so let me engage, some of the listeners. I see we have, Pastor Joylene Mangani. Good evening, family. Thank you so much for always joining. We are talking to Dr. Mao Amis. Wow, what an innovation. I see innovation in the way that, your company, or maybe not the company, your organization, it's actually structured, but also innovation in the things that you do. And talking about innovations, I want, DJ Messi, just line up, some of, the pictures that I have harvested from his social media platform. I know that you are innovating. DJ Messi, if you have a picture there, just show. He doesn't know what kind of pictures we're going to show, but because these are his pictures, I'm sure he will be able to tell us what, these pictures are all about. DJ Messi, if you have a picture. Okay, so while we wait for DJ Messi, give us, some of, the innovation. There we go. Green innovations.
That's interesting. So that is in my backyard, in Cape Town. And so basically there we are using it's a hydroponics system where we grow vegetables in those white pipes with water, and so it's soil-less planting of vegetables, lettuce, and they thrive very well. And we grow it in our backyard as part of our social corporate responsibility. We take it to a hospice in Cape Town that houses people with I think it's parasol with disabilities.
Okay, so this hydroponics, is it something that you did? Oh, okay. Okay, so is it something that you created, or you did, or did you have to buy the material? Just tell us a little bit how did you bring it to life?
Hydroponics is a very well established and technology of actually how to grow vegetables in a resource scarce environment, and where it actually leads up to saving up to about 10 times more than conventional water, or conventional water that's used for your regular vegetables. Hydroponics also can be grown in very confined space. So it's a very well developed technologies. And if you go to places like America, it's rolled out at scale. But the aim of, like I said, our center is a think, do, and our innovation, our aim has always been to unearth some of these simple innovations that you can put on the hand of entrepreneurs, community members, and so on. Because we actually, I have a very strong belief that there's no need to reinvent the wheel. A lot of the solutions to our problems are just around us. And so we just need to look around us, whether it's innovations in medicine, in food, in water, and so on. And just for us to see it as our job to unearth those kind of things and put them out there, and also to test them and to see if they work, they don't work, how can we tweak them to make them, solve some of the systemic challenges that society faces.
Okay, I see. Nico is really, really feeling so inspired. He's saying, I like the approach from think tank to think do tank, because it brings, these action oriented, research and stuff. Wow, thank you so much. Okay, so let me see if there is another picture.
So maybe you want me to speak that picture that just came up now.
Yes, so that one.
So our center, we do, this was actually last year during the Sharm el-Sheikh conference, which is, for those who don't know, every year we have the annual climate change summit globally. And I'm actually in East Africa now, just having come last week from Nairobi with the Africa Climate Summit. And for us as a center, we believe that we need to occupy these spaces. We need to be able to operate at the highest echelons of society, all debates where these things happen, because we have a message that needs to be heard, whether it's by policymakers, by investors, and so on. So every year we go to this global summit. So last year we were in Sharm el-Sheikh. We just came last week from the Africa Climate Summit, and in November we're going to go to COP28 in Dubai to just represent these voices that we believe are very critical on the ground that often don't get heard. Wow.
I think, we are same WhatsApp group when it comes to that, because that's also the things that I believe in, especially in the food security, space. Because whether you participate in these global events or not, the decisions that are made do affect you. So if your voice is not heard at that highest level, you can be rest assured that you'll be following and implementing the voices of other people. While we still talking, to Dr. Mao Amis, we're gonna take yet another commercial break. When we come back, I want us to unpack. There is this other innovation that I have seen you with the maggots and your ad feed and all that. That one I want to spend a little bit time on that, because it's really, really intriguing. Let's take a commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go away. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, this is the African experience. You are with me, Dr. Shami. We are talking to a global giant. You know, if you don't know, if you have just joined us, we are talking to Dr. Mao Amis. He's the founder and the executive director for an organization called, the African Center for Green Economy. He's very passionate about, youth platform. He's very passionate about, the green economy. We just seen, some of the innovations, that, he does. But what we like so much is the approach, that they use. Okay, Dr. Mao. Um, that S, what do you call it? S feet?
That fits, yeah. That fits, yeah.
Yes. Take us through what it is all about.
Yeah, look, so outfits, one of the things I'm very passionate about is that I've always, like I said, I think do tank. We want to understand what are the kind of innovations that would allow people to move out of poverty. And our approach to doing the thing is that we want to capitalize on what our communities know. So if you're going to introduce a poverty alleviation intervention, you need to understand what are the kind of resources that the community already have and capitalize on those. And oftentimes projects fail because someone sits somewhere in some central office and say, oh, to this community, you need to go do X, you need to go and train them, you need to do this and that and so on. But for us, our approach is let's go to the community, understand what kind of resources exist within those communities, whether it's skills, whether it's about financial resources, whether it's about capabilities and so on. So ASFIX came out as an idea of creating income generating activities at the communities level. And one of the things we discovered in Uganda, and I'm sure most of the countries in South Africa, particularly the Limpopo province, is that every single household, for some reason, at least in East Africa, they know how to rear chicken. And it's usually the crude chicken and so on. So we thought that if you really want to amplify poverty alleviation at community level, and income generating activities that is so obvious, apart from just cultivating crops, is encouraging households to rear chicken for commercial basis. So we went that pathway. So it means we needed to unlock the poultry value chain because we thought it holds the, if you like, the solution to addressing this poverty alleviation challenge. And when this was my first project in Uganda. I've been in South Africa for more than, almost 20 years, and I've never done anything like that. So anyway, we embarked on a journey, and we quickly found out that one of the biggest problems with poultry is the feeds. It's very expensive.
Okay.
So we started thinking about how do you innovate around feeds. So we set up a hub here. We have a factory here that manufactures animal feeds and distributing it to smallholder.
Hold on, because I want DJ Messi to show some pictures, because I did harvest it so that people can have an imagination of what I have appreciated. DJ Messi, some of the pictures, if you have, with those boxes and those flies and things like that. Okay,
oh yes,
there we go.
So one of the things, if you're in agriculture, you will know that feeds are very expensive. And one of the biggest problems about the cost of feeds is the ingredients. Most of your animal feeds have actually use soya beans as a source of proteins. And because of that, the cost of feeds is extremely high. So your typical smallholder farmer would not be able to afford them. So we decided we also investigated, found around, and then we found out a very industrious fly called the black soldier fly. So the black soldier fly has a very interesting life cycle. The black soldier fly, the adults that you see in the picture, they lay eggs, and their maggots, which is basically the larva, can eat up to 10 times their own weight, which becomes full of fat, high protein content, and so on. So we tap those larvae, which is laid by the black soldier fly, which you see in the picture. And we take those as a substitute for soya in the manufacture of feeds. So that automatically cuts down the cost of manufacturing feeds. But black soldier fly are very interesting creature. The adults that you see in the picture, unlike your typical house fly, they don't transmit any disease because the adults don't eat.
Ah,
They
I
only
see.
do two things only. They mate, lay eggs, and die.
Okay, this is very
So,
interesting.
so because of that, they don't even have a
Hmm.
mouth parts. Because you see, like
Oh.
the disease transmission happened because of houseflies that they can lay eggs on your food, move from one food source of
Mm,
food to another, and could have
mm.
the risk of transmitting disease. But anyway,
Wow.
so what we do with the black soldier fly, we take organic waste from the municipality, like
Mm,
the where leftover food and so on,
mm.
and we feed the larva. So the only stage of the black soldier fly that eats, I don't know how many biologists are there in this call, but a typical
Yeah.
insect has about 4 stages of a life cycle. So there's the adult. The
Mm,
adult lays eggs. The eggs
mm,
develop into a larva. The
mm.
larva develop into something called a pupa. Then the
Yeah.
pupa goes back into an adult.
Mm,
But
mm,
but the second stage of this black soldier fly, which is the larva, they eat
mm.
aggressively.
Wow.
So
Okay.
we use it as a solution to waste management as well,
Management.
because
I
you can,
see.
yeah. So you take
I
your waste,
see.
yeah.
Hmm.
They can, and we're talking tons. In our project, we're processing up to about 5 tons of organic waste per week.
Wow, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. Anyway, I know before maybe you go, you're going to share your contact details if people want to know more about it, so that they can actually learn from there. I just want to take another question from Mr. Manuleke. He seems to be very, very excited about what you are sharing. He's saying, what is climate finance? Yeah, does it fall within the green economy field? What do organizations need to do in order to access such finance? Does carbon credit is carbon credit part of it? And is the African Center for Green Economy involved in that field? So there are like four different questions in one here. Climate finance, yeah, the green economy
Mhm.
field. Yes, I hope you had that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we could have a whole talk show about climate finance, but it
Mm,
is essentially, a lot of our thought leadership lies in that space. But to just say briefly, a climate finance is essentially the finances that are required to enable us to transition into low carbon technologies. And,
mm,
and
mm,
so, so for example, in the context of Africa, let's say in the context of South Africa is extremely highly dependent on coal for its
mm,
electricity generation. Okay.
mm,
And
mm,
so South Africa needs to decouple from coal into renewable energy.
mm,
And for South
mm,
Africa to do that, so it has to mobilize finance for that particular transition. And so that finance could be domestically sourced finance from your development banks, or it could be internationally sourced climate finance. And
I
to give
see.
again, South Africa, for example, South Africa in 2021, South Africa raised $8.6 billion
Mm,
through what we call the Just Energy Partnership, which is basically South
mm,
Africa being supported by 5 other countries to enable South Africa to transition away
I see.
from coal into renewable energy sources. So that's essentially what climate finance. The finance is actually required to help us
Mm-hmm.
to move into low carbon technologies. And when it
Okay.
comes to and they did, yeah.
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Go
So
ahead.
there are different forms of climate finance. So carbon credits are an example of climate financing mechanism. And the idea of a carbon
Mm-hmm.
credit is that, let's say you have your piece of forest, and this forest contributes a lot to mitigating the impact of climate change. You could sell what is called carbon credits, and that is basically
Mm,
the amount of carbon that is stored in your forest that
mm,
someone else anywhere who is polluting can offset against that credit. But it's a
mm.
whole topic of its own.
On its
But
own.
that is our
Mm-hmm.
thought leadership space rests in the kind of issues like climate finance, because as you can see, they are relatively abstract.
Mm-hmm. Wow, wow,
Mm,
wow. I
mm,
think maybe, Mr. Manuleke, maybe what I can say is that, engaging in these, global debates also unlocks, this understanding and also where the opportunities lie. I want to recognize there is Nkabe Manganyi who's saying, thank you, so insightful. Thank you so, so much. Okay, so I know we can spend, a week, sharing and all that, but I don't want us to talk professional things alone. I also want to go into your personal space because I know you are such a global citizen and all that. But perhaps before we do that, I want to ask you about your organization. What is the vision that you have for your organization going forward?
Look, I think that our organization, we want to be seen as the African Center as a platform that really is at the forefront of driving the continent's development agenda, and more specifically, the transition towards a green economy. So, from an organizational perspective, we want to influence how change happens because we think that it's important for us to step up and take leadership on our continent. So we are very adamant about that. But obviously, we also want to see, impact on the ground. I always say it's like, it's so embarrassing that they say we, with a very high level of qualifications, we go to our villages and our communities still don't have running water. Our communities don't have, electricity. How can we bring a material difference in the lives of our people?
Wow, that is really touching. It's really actually go deep because from what I'm learning and what we are saying, it actually puts the responsibility not on government, but on us as individuals who are actually coming from these spaces. What do we do in order to contribute in to improve, the lives of the people that we engage with or where we come from? Okay, so yeah, so you are a global citizen. Maybe I know you travel, and do you know how many countries have you been to? If if you have counted.
It's very interesting you ask that question.
Mm,
And I thought about it's like I travel quite a lot, but I notice actually it's a concentration of countries. So
yeah.
maybe I could say maybe anywhere between 30 to 35 perhaps.
Mhm.
Um, but but for me it's more about the concentration. So there are places that you
Station.
visit more
Yeah.
often. Yeah, the
Yep.
places that you visit more often, and so.
Mm,
But to be honest with you, Lami, and it's come back oftentimes to my career choice. I think that there's so much our continent offers that
mm,
we don't actually have time to travel. Even though we almost live in our briefcase. So I think I've been to all corners of the of the of,
oh,
of the globe, but I would never live anywhere apart from Africa because I think it's beautiful this place.
okay. I'm going to take yet another commercial break. That is the last one. When we come back, I want us
Mm.
to actually piggyback on what you have just said so that we talk about our continent. But more specifically, I want us to come to Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, because that is exactly where I'm broadcasting live from, and that is the country of your origin. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away. When we come back, we continue to engage with our giant, guest here, Dr. Mau Amis. Don't go away. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last quarter of our hour. And when we are having fun, the time just flies like that. This is the African experience. You are with me, Dr. Sami. Tonight, I'm talking to a very inspiring person. His name is Dr. Mao Ames. He's the founder and the CEO of an organization called the African Center for Green Economy. Those of you who have missed, the first half, don't worry. We're gonna share this, the link of, these podcasts so that you can be able to catch up on some of the things that he has shared. Okay, so we're coming to Uganda. Oh, I see Patsin there is trying, his language. He say "webale nyo." That means, is that, is that does that mean thank you, or I did it? But anyway, we'll come to that. So we also have a listener there, Sonipa Nichian, saying, our beautiful, Africa indeed. Okay, so let's come to the Pearl of Africa. Why is Uganda called the Pearl of Africa?
Look, Uganda, I mean, I don't want to, two things. One, I don't actually know so much about Uganda, which is so weird coming from coming from Uganda. But Uganda is a beautiful country, an extremely beautiful country. If you're a nature lover like me, you're just spoiled for choices. You have beautiful equatorial rainforests. We have grasslands. We have semi-arid environments. Water bodies, rivers, lakes. So Uganda is absolutely mesmerizing for the nature lover and the person. And so I think that's why Churchill Winston, when he came to visit Uganda, I think in the 60s, and said like, wow, this is the pearl of Africa. Because Uganda's size, relatively speaking, is just like one province in South Africa, for example.
Wow. I'm actually here in Uganda, and I can actually attest, to the beauty. I can attest, to the food. I love food. I love food, but also, the hospitality of the people. It's just amazing. Just like you, where you say, there is a concentration of countries that you visit. Uganda, for me, it could be my third home because I lost count how many times I have visited here. So if somebody who's listening out there and they are thinking of, making holidays and all that, why should they choose Uganda as their go-to, a destination?
The beautiful thing about Uganda is that first of all, it's very accessible, one, but also Uganda is not your overtrodden tourist path that you would like to think about. So you can get very unique experience, but without necessarily, if you like, the crowd that you will find. But also Uganda, I mean, the people in Uganda, if you just forget about the nature and the beautiful, the people are extremely hospitable.
Absolutely.
You come in here, you would feel at home. At no point would you feel insecure, would you feel unwelcome. And so I think the people are what really makes Uganda what it is.
Absolutely. That I can attest. I agree with you 100%. I came to Uganda many times and I always feel at home, people are hospitable and things like that. We only have, 10 minutes, to go to the end of our show. I want to go personal. I know you are very, very adventurous. I try to harvest, some of, the pictures, DJ Messi. If you have, some of the pictures there, okay, there we go.
Yeah, so I'm a biker. I love biking.
Okay.
And I love exploring South Africa because that was in a Tankwa in the middle of nowhere. I camped in an area that is almost, let's say, 20 square kilometer with nobody in sight. How beautiful is that? With only the stars. So I'd love to do that out. And especially if you have a household of 3 loud boys, sometimes you need to be on your own to regain yourself.
So, and you were traveling alone there?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of person who I like to do solo travel. So I've even driven from Cape Town to Uganda by myself alone, 6,800 kilometers. So.
That I have seen that. Okay, so what were you doing here? So you are a biker, you cycle?
Yeah, I cycle. I used to do quite a bit of road cycling, but now I go on the Table Mountain because we live in Cape Town. Cape Town is a very beautiful place, and I cycle as often as possible, partly to just, obviously for fitness, but also just to get closer to nature. And cycling is addictive. It's such an amazing sport.
Okay, so I see we can't go out of the hook here. There is another question for Mr. Maluleke. He's sending us back to Uganda. He wants to have an idea how is the what is the population of Uganda, if you know, and how many languages roughly that are spoken here.
Good question. Uganda, I could be wrong here, but Uganda, I think the population at the moment is 42 million, I think. I could be wrong, 42 million, yes. And wow, we have a lot of languages. I think I could also be wrong, but something upwards of 30 languages. For example, the region where I stay in, there are like 5 languages as we speak. And here we're talking, almost just size of Soweto.
No, that is true. In the workshop that I'm facilitating here in Uganda this week, it's about the project that will be implemented on agroecology, and we are working with some company called Access Agriculture, where they do the videos and all that. So today I know they said something about up to like 52 languages in Uganda that they are translating into these videos that farmers can actually have access to. Okay, so now take me through your journey, because I know I looked at you, I'm like, oh my word, how could you do that? You travel from Cape Town to Uganda on your own and driving. What was going on in your mind? I mean, you say you have been to 30 countries, but I mean, traveling from here to Uganda, I'm sure you crossed so many countries there. Yeah.
It's interesting when I tell people about my journey, actually, and funny enough, I don't actually like to drive, but that particular year, I don't know where I got my energy, but I kind of feel, I literally hopped off a plane from Trinidad and Tobago and got onto my car and drove.
Wow.
No, look, I had an idea that I wanted to come to drive to Uganda, and I told a few of my buddies that let's do this, and everyone thought I was joking. And that's how I've always operated. Like when I set up my mind to do something, I'll go ahead and do it. So that's how I set off. When I shared pictures, like, wow, you're actually doing this. So it took me 8 days of. It was very fast drive, 8 days from Cape Town to Uganda, and I covered about 6,800 kilometers.
Wow.
And I went through some of the most amazing landscapes in Western Tanzania, where there's absolutely no one. Literally, I could park my car on the roadside and fall asleep in the car. And that is the kind of sense of security you get traveling through Africa. I always tell people, like, if you hear the stories of Africa from newspapers, you will never leave your house.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that is the reason why we have this show. So this show is about the African experience, because when you listen to the mainstream media, Africa is portrayed as it's war, it's poverty. So if you have not been to Africa, you will never know that there are the likes of Dr. Mao, and so the purpose of this show is really to demystify all the negativity that the mainstream media say about Africa, to say, yes, surely we do have challenges, but we also have excellent people. We have beautiful countries. We have a culture which is full of rich with heritage and all that. Talking about the heritage, that in South Africa this month it's a heritage month.
Of course, yeah.
What are some of the lessons that you want to leave our listeners with, either from heritage or entrepreneurship or anything? What are some of the lessons that you want to leave our listeners with?
Look, I think that, I mean, when I quit my job to set up the center, and I will never forget this. My boss basically told me, like, no, Mal, you go out there. If things don't work out, you're always welcome back. And it was very indirect way of saying, like, I know you can't make it, and you're going to come back.
Mm.
So I think that for me, one thing that I've learned out of this journey is that you can never be prepared enough to take that first step. If you have a very strong gut feeling about it, I think you need to take that very first step and make it happen. But also, the second thing I guess is that we need to, especially for those of us who have had the opportunity, the privilege, and so you must know that we owe it to our communities and so on to give back. I would rather employ 5 people than have a fat salary and have all the luxuries that I desire, because I think that we host so many. We know what the problem is on the ground, and instead of whining about government and so on, what are you doing within your circle of friends, your community, within your own understanding of the issues, doing something to bring a difference in society?
Wow, wow. Another listener there is saying the leap of faith can take us far. I think, she really, really agrees with you. I can attest to that as well. I think, same WhatsApp group. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to Dr. Mao Amis. What an inspiring person he is. Wow. If people want to touch base with you, where can they find you?
So I'm on all social media platforms. I'm one person who shares more than I should probably. As a person, the Mao Amis, both in LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me, because that's where I share a lot of my ideas and thought leadership. Mao Amis in every platform, including TikTok, even though I haven't shared for a while. But Mao Amis in social media, but also importantly, the africancenter.org. We have a newsletter where we share our updates of the work that we do, and so, because I think that for me, if there's anything that defines what we do, is obviously the center, this hub that we would like to build for collaboration, for knowledge sharing, and so for me that's the importance. It's africancenter.org, and from there you will have a bird's eye view of all the things we've been doing over the last 10 years.
Okay. Yeah. And I like it because you talk about, collaborations and things like that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have, the time for. Like I always say that, when we are having fun and we are learning, the time, just, fly like that. I want to say thank you so much to our technical producer, DJ Messi. I want to say thank you to Pastor Strike. And I want to thank my co-host, Mandla Aventina MABUNDA. And I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Mao Amis, for spending this hour with us, sharing what you have to offer. Thank you so much. And I know that for many people, time is money, but you gave your time to share with us. Thank you so much. And God bless, and really, really hoping to see you back in Cape Town, and perhaps go for a hike. And maybe also link you, perhaps, with, Mr. Nyuko Maluleke, who was asking so many questions because he's also an actor in the agri space. Thank you so much. This is what we have time for, and God bless.
Thank you, Lami, and your team. It was good having me around. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Streaming 24/7. 24/7.
Bold Moves Radio.
Bold Moves Radio.
Afrika nakupenda sana, oh Afrika nakupenda sana.